Anyways, okay. So first exercise that you're basically asked to do is basically do a usability test. The sake of a usability test is kind of a way to check whether or not your site is very usable or like easy to just navigate through. Obviously, when you design a website, it should be like kind of like immediate. You should immediately know how to operate it or use it, right? Or at least have some kind of semblance of how to use it, right? For example, a good way to kind of show this, if you gave someone GitLab, for example, a usability test, they would kind of freak out because of the fact that there's so many different buttons. And if you're not in like the computer science space kind of thing, this could overwhelm you a lot. And that's one of the things where, again, it's just more like reading in from the audience and from the users and seeing how they react and then what could be possibly improved to make it better. Now,
Okay.
obviously, a general audience is not the best way to describe something like GitLab because obviously it's more used towards like actual computer science people in computer science. So while one feedback could be, from a user who has no computer science background, be like, this is so much on the screen right now, I have no idea what's going on. For a computer science student, they'd be like, oh, okay, everything seems where it should be, and I can immediately work through it. The idea is to make sure you get multiple users. First, identify your target users, and then get multiple perspectives from those users to basically design a website that's more catered to fit everyone's kind of like preference for how to navigate through a website, essentially. So the first exercise that we're going to do is basically go through a usability test with using Jetstar. In a usability test, there are two key players, essentially. There's the facilitator and there's the user. The facilitator is the one who's actually constantly evaluating and watching over you while you're going through the actual test itself. And they're basically trying to pinpoint what possible usability issues you've identified, your behavior, and maybe questioning you further about why you decide to do a lot of decisions. At the end of the day, usability test is really trying to get into the psyche of a user. And then by fully understanding that, you can design a better navigation.
Yeah, so I've got a question before I guess interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, so the UX guys would generally give you some sort of it's almost like it's a requirement from the UX guy, right? They'll give you like how they expect the flow to happen.
Yeah.
Like developers don't normally do this, do they?
Well, it depends.
I don't know.
If you want to separate into like UI UX developers,
yeah.
UX's main goal is to check out user experience and then refine it so UI people can just design it, right?
So this is UX, right? Almost.
Yeah, basically this is the user experience of sorts. This is the other side of front end, which doesn't get explored in a practical kind of sense, but really does affect how successful you are in terms of designing websites and how easy it is for someone to recognize how to go through it.
Yeah, cool. No. Just
so yeah.
Just
there's another course called Human Computer Interaction that also explores this way further. This just basically touches the basics on it. So just for this exercise, I was actually going to have it that I'll be the user and then you guys can be the facilitators. You guys being you in this case, Brian. In which case that you just need to observe what you need to observe my behavior, and you need to be the one questioning further, maybe like pushing further on me and how as I go through the site. Okay, so the idea is you'll give me a task to do on Jetstar Airways, right? And I will basically go and undo that task. And you, as the facilitator, need to constantly review and evaluate how I perform and my behavior, essentially. Think of it like a psychologist trying to actually like.
Oh, okay. So am I the facilitator then?
Yes, I'm going to put you guys as the facilitator because I think that's way more engaging than the user. The user is like, yeah, you just like.
So I'm going to tell you what to do. Okay, I'll give you a goal. Okay, so
yeah.
Should I give you something totally or obvious?
So this is something to keep in mind as well when it comes to tasks. You need to give me a task that's vague enough that doesn't explain to me the step-by-step process, but not too vague to the point where it could give me something really, really vague.
Okay, I can give you a high-level task to achieve. So I would like to go to Bali 1st of May, and I would like the car when I get there.
Okay, cool.
Rental car.
All right. So as a user, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the think aloud procedure. So the think aloud procedure or method is basically whatever I do, I'm just going to enunciate, I'm going to do it, right? So, all right, let's start. first you wanted me to go to Bali, and then you said, was it 1st of May?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool. 1st of May. All right, cool. Did you need a specific return date?
I'd like to get back to the cheaper rate.
A cheaper rate?
I'm a
Okay,
bit of a student,
sure, sure.
and I want to set it
How long
roughly
do you
between
expect to
2 to
stay
3
now?
weeks. Yeah, 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks. Okay. So let's see. Is there anything? Oh, okay. This one has like 131. If you want to stay the longer, sure. Why not? Let's just choose this one. Okay, cool. From Sydney to Bali, return trip, 1 passenger, such flights. Okay. So now I'm going to search through flights. I see there is one at 2:40 p.m. and then there's also one at 3:20 p.m. Was there a specific time you want to be at the airport?
Look, if I can get there earlier, it'd be nicer.
Okay.
Get a bit more
Cool.
time during the day. So,
Yep, sure. Would you like say earlier at the airport or earlier at Bali?
earlier, good questions. I guess if I get to Bali and it's kind of nighttime, it doesn't make a difference anyways. So it's a bit irrelevant.
So midnight it is.
So I guess if we're gonna get there and it's sort of nighttime, then the later the better to
Okay.
depart.
All right, midnight seems to work fine here, and this one seems to be also the one that has the least amount of hours, so I'll select that. Because you're a student, you said I'll just choose starter package, and I will choose the $131 package, which will require you to go at 10:35 p.m. and then again starter, and I'll continue to bags. Okay, and that's task 1 essentially. All right. One of the things as a facilitator you can do actually is that you can also, like, while I'm doing this, you could be asking, okay, why did you choose this? Admittedly, I was a good user. Basically, I was constantly telling you what I thought about. But if you have, say, like a user who's a bit more shy or a lot more, I guess, like to themselves, it's one of those things where you have to kind of push as they're doing it. Okay, so why did you select this? Like, why would you, select the starter package as opposed to the other packages, for example? How did you find this and that, right? And overall, you're gathering data for yourself to make it easy.
I guess a question I'll ask is like, and I kind of come across as well as like, did you remember? Are you sure you booked correctly with what time you did it? Because you can't go back now, can you?
Sure.
Can you?
I think. Okay, yeah, I mean, that could be a task in itself. You could be like, yeah, you want to double check that you have the right flight. The only way I can do it, it seems to me, is that I need to go back. Yeah, go back to flights. And if I go back to flights, it will show me all the flights I selected, but there's no constant reminder of what flights I chose and no constant reminder of what options I've selected as I go through the process, which is, yeah, something you can actually pinpoint. Is it more reassuring to constantly have the information you selected to the user so that they know that they selected the right thing? Or is it better that you don't overcrowd the page so much so that they can't understand what the hell's going on and they get flustered really easily? So those are some of the things to consider, so to speak. Let me see what else is required from this exercise of sorts. So user will share the screen after the user has completed the task, whether successfully or unsuccessfully. Yep. So facilitator will always ask for the questions. Again, it's just more getting into the psyche of the user itself. And then we want to report our findings, in particular problems. Yeah, make a dot list of all the sections that were confusing, and then you'll basically take that feedback and then kind of like put it to the UI designers to be like, okay, this is the feedback we got from users. We want you to design it like this way to address that and stuff like that. Part B is specifically asking you, again, just like earlier, choose a task which has direction and purpose, but doesn't outright give the steps to do it, right? So instead of saying like book a flight to Bali, I could have said, okay, could you please go to flights and then select the Bali tickets, right? Obviously, that's too much direction given by a user. And then this user wouldn't also have this kind of mindset if they have never seen this website before, right? It's like they have a purpose. They want to go to Bali somehow. How are they going to do Bali? Well, I think flights the best, selection. And ideally, that's what you want to have. You want to have like a kind of like user experience. You have to want a user to naturally navigate through your site such that they don't question anything. It feels natural to them. And then they report to you that, yeah, this is what I did because it felt natural to me. So yeah, that's essentially the entirety of the exercise.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Now, I've come across this thing called Lighthouse. I know it's a bit different to this. Is that usability? Like, is that roughly testing the websites? Like,
Can you say that?
Lighthouse in Chrome?
Lighthouse in Chrome.
If you
No.
okay, so you were in Chrome, right?
Yeah.
If you just go back to no. It's literally if you just go back to where you were, right click on developer tools.
Right click on developer tools.
And under one of the just if you and there's a see how you got network, blah blah blah. If you click on the expand.
Lighthouse.
Oh yeah. Is this usability? Right. What is this? I found this very interesting. It does an audit of the page.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not UX, it's like what is it? It's
UX and UI design.
UX.
It's accessibility. It's like usability, basically. Usability evaluation.
So can we just run this and then we kind of get away with it?
Well, this was designed by an algorithm that was like, and it's more like this one looks at things objectively, what's wrong, right? So it'll look at the contrast of text. It'll look at whether or not, accessibility values were considered. See how like, yeah, you can see accessibility. You can see performance as well, where they actually evaluate how long does it take.
Oh, wow, that's bad.
Stuff like that. But these are more like quantitative values that you can get to evaluate a page's usability. It is tied with usability to an extent, definitely, but it lacks the human element, which is how does a human naturally navigate through this? Because you could get perfectly 100 on all these values, but if your site is still unnatural to navigate through, then it doesn't matter, right?
It's all about performance, right? Sounds like it's just not, things are not loading up in parallel. They're just waiting for something. I don't know how it's reached for 4 out of 100.
Oh yeah, no, this is like performing poorly. There's probably like a bunch of
really
renders
bad.
happening at the same time.
Really slow.
I mean, fair enough. It's like a little travel site, so it has to constantly update its database to check what flights are available and stuff like that. So that's probably accounting for it. But there's also probably like a bunch of traffic that's causing this number to go really low.
It's probably stealing information, just watching what you're doing.
But I'm not too sure what like Lighthouse is. I've never used Lighthouse.
Because when I was sort of like looking at usability, I guess I was like, all right, maybe I'll just audit the thing quickly using this tool because I'm very lazy. But I guess that's not quite it. That's more, you're talking more about psychology. Yeah.
Well, this is like a different side of usability. Yeah. Usability in itself is a very broad topic, and this is just a different aspect of it, which is the usability test, essentially. This is still a very good measure of usability. It's definitely like valuable to read this kind of information and actually make adjustments to your site to obviously raise these scores. But you need to do that in tandem with making sure that it's still user accessible. You know what I mean? Like someone can naturally site and everything. Like one of the things that was annoying for me when I was like marking assignments was that people put like how you access your profile in a very weird way. You have to like click on your name on like some part of the page, for example, right? Which is unnatural because if you're thinking of any social media service, you usually have like a profile picture on the top right or like your name on the top right. You just click on that, right?
Oh, that's what I did.
Yeah, because that's like natural to us at this point.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where affordance comes into play nowadays. Affordance basically implies it's like the positioning of something or like the meaning of the design of something to imply a meaning or purpose. And nowadays, I would argue that like because we live in a digital world now, a lot of like prompts are just affordances now. For example, we know that the shopping cart is a way to like check out our shopping list and stuff like that. It's natural to us. And nowadays, we see a profile, like we see an image of a man, we know that's a profile picture, essentially. So that's something cool to consider. I don't know what happened here, but cool. But yeah, that is the beauty of product usability testing. It is a lot more, usually a lot more in depth. Admittedly, we're just touching the surface of it, but it's a great way to just evaluate
Yeah.
how well your
You're
site.
getting focus groups, right? This is what it is.
You have to do
At that
quite a lot,
level.
yeah. So usually you
Yeah.
do like focus groups. This is usually also designed. This is also usually done on low fidelity prototypes of your site. So this is never done on the final product because by then it's already too late. You know what I mean? Like you've already invested so much time into the final product. You've made it more detailed. You've given it a bunch of styles, and then imagine being told, "Oh, because this whole section right here is unusable, get rid of it, start again." Right? So to make sure that you save time, these UX engineers basically have to do this immediately, and they have to get it right as succinct and as precise as possible, essentially. Otherwise, it just downtrods it like it's like a downward spiral of like difficulty and complexity to basically fix it from there. So it is pretty important. Actually, it's one of the things like I give a tip to everyone who does the assignments to be like, design your website in something like Figma, for example. Just because one, you're kind of like designing it such that it feels natural to you where everything's placed. And then two, you don't have to really worry about styling as much. Like once you got one element working, then you can just basically fill it in like a template. You know what I mean? So like say there's like Airbnb and stuff like that. Yeah, you can just do like a very low, this is low fidelity, by the way. This is not like fully detailed. I literally just took like logos from everything and pictures from everything. So if you think it looks really high quality, it's really not. It's just me literally taking screenshots. But it shows you functionality. It also like allows you to kind of like map the specifications to some icon or some button, for example. For example, one of the specifications I had to do was select more filters for filtering out Airbnbs. So I deliberately designed a button that's like easily accessible, and then when you click on it, you get like all these filters and stuff like that. It's always giving a good idea to just do this before you actually start your site, because it also gives you kind of like a little bit of a push where you know for a fact that once the site looks like this and it's working as intended, you're basically moving on to the next thing that you designed. It's just a constant reminder of like what needs to be done and stuff like that.